I always wanted to be the man behind the mask. And I met him one day and he was like, this business ain't gonna let you do that, pretty boy. And I was just like, all righty. So there went my dreams.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Secret Obsession. Today we're talking to Freddie Prinze Jr. You know him from his movies, which include the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, She's All That. He also has a long list of voiceover credits, including Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels, also the Iron Bull for all the horny people out there.
He's the best.
And he just launched a new podcast over on Wondery called That Was Pretty Scary, streaming anywhere you get your podcasts. Let's talk about horror, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so it surprised me how surprised everyone else was when they kind of heard the origin story of this and my love for horror. Because, you know, early in my career, I guess it shouldn't have been surprising. I'm just old. Young people haven't had access to any of the early interviews that I did, where I talked about, you know, I always wanted Ron Perlman's career. I always wanted to be the man behind the mask. And I met him one day and he was like, this business ain't gonna let you do that, pretty boy. And I was just like, all righty. So there went my dreams, but party on. I still want the man's career. For those who don't know, you know, you only know him from Hellboy maybe, but he was even Beast in the live action Beauty and the Beast back in the day with Linda Hamilton.
And he lived in a sewer in that one too, I think.
Yeah, man. I didn't say it was historically accurate. Figuratively speaking, historically accurate. But it was still sick. The makeup was sick. So anyway, that's where the obsession came, was from the original sort of monster movies at Universal. When I was a little boy, we went on the tram tour. I think I was however old you are in the third grade, 8 or 9 years old. And all the kids were like climbing over their parents to get away from the monsters that would walk up to the tram while they were waiting to go. You know, it wasn't as exciting as it is now. That was one of the main attractions, were people dressed in costumes. And I was climbing over people to get to Frankenstein, and I patted him on his head. And my mom was like, you always like bad guys. You always rooted for the bad guy pro wrestlers. You always rooted for the monsters in movies. You cried when they killed the werewolf in Silver Bullet. Like, what I always wanted to be was scary. You know what I mean? And I'm just not that guy ever, even at 47. Just nothing scary about me. So yeah, man, that's always been my obsession. And my buddy, one of my best friends, John Lee Brody, he's James Wan's protege. And we sit and we watch horror films all the time. And then this was on top of all of our favorites. We just kind of wanted to see the world's horror. And I had already been doing my wrestling podcast, Wrestling with Freddie. And he said, dude, you're doing great with that. You know, you have fun with that. We should do a horror one. And I was like, yeah, we should. But I didn't really know how to start it. And he goes, dude, we'll start with I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I kind of paused. I was like, brother, I've never seen it. I don't know how to like relive it. And he was like, well, that'll be the pilot, is you watching it for the first time and how it made you feel. So that was our first episode. Everyone can check it out on wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are a member of Amazon Plus, you get our episodes a week early, and then they go wherever you listen to the following week. But that one, our pilot's out there. I think we're 5 or 6 in, or maybe, no, like 3 or 4 in now. But I love doing it. We're going to talk about pretty much every horror movie ever made. And it's all love and explanation. It's explanation of how the shots are accomplished, how the creature effects are accomplished, what I think a lot of the actors are going through in their process based on my experience in this business. So it's not just, hey, we love it, or, oh, we hate it. We don't hate any horror movies. I have Chopping Mall in there, and I freaking love Chopping Mall. And if you don't like The Stuff and Chopping Mall and awesome movies like that, that's fine. But just know they're on our first season, because The Stuff is amazing.
The Stuff is, I'm realizing I should have probably switched the poster out from Moulin Rouge to something more horror.
Are you kidding? I love Moulin Rouge.
I mean, we contains multitudes in this house, but like,
my dear friend was the original producer on that. I love that movie.
A hell of a movie. I listened to the first 2 episodes you have out right now, which is I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I love that episode because I love hearing behind the scenes talk from anyone involved. If you want behind the scenes talk, like, first episode.
Oh yeah, we went almost all in. I couldn't go all in because some people have kids and they don't, those kids don't need to be hearing crap about their parents and stuff like that. But everyone that didn't, we talked.
You talk about that you're not comfortable watching yourself, and what was the feelings like?
It was easier than I thought because it was so long ago. It doesn't even look like me anymore, right? So I didn't that part was kind of taken away, but it's a multitude of reasons. I've always read the script, so I know how it ends. So it's not going to be that exciting. And I didn't make the movie, for me. I chose the character for me. I made the movie for you. And if you connect with it, cool. And if you don't, then that's on me. And it's my responsibility to try and make you click with the next guy that I play. So that's like the contract that audiences and actors have to make with one another, right? Like, I agree to do everything I can to connect with you. You agree to shut the hell up during the movie and not disturb the person next to you. And if I don't fulfill my end, feel free to walk out. It's my responsibility to earn your trust back. So, and I'm with that. Like, going back to watching I Know What You Did, outside of what I thought would be more awkward than it was, which was having to see my face for 90 minutes. It was surreal. It was wild, because about 2 minutes in, Sarah walked downstairs and was like, wait a minute, are you watching I Know What You Did Last Summer? And John's like, yeah, sit down. And so she came and sat in between us, and all three of us ended up watching it together and just sort of relived the whole movie all over again. And I got to remember that scene with Sarah running, because we were all there that night I think Ryan and I were there that night to support her, because it was her death scene.
Yeah.
And we saw that like last spark of hope. And I just loved that her character, when she finally makes the one brave choice, the one brave, she's needed to be brave since the first scene in the movie. The movie's 4 minutes long if she's brave. And she finally is brave, and her reward is death. She just gets a hook and just beat down. And I just thought it was so great. It was such a Wes Craven move, right? Which is like, now you finally earned the killer's respect, and your reward is not life, it is death. I just thought it was great.
I'm curious now, because you on the podcast, you talk about the same thing with wrestling, how like when you're a writer for WWE, then you stepped away from it. It took a while to come back to it.
Yeah.
When you were doing I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, was that something that you then had to step away from horror for a minute, or did you always have the love for it?
I didn't want to step away. It wasn't by choice. It was, every horror thing that came my way either didn't click with me or I didn't click with them. Like, one of us didn't want the other, if that makes sense. So it was either a role that I wasn't going to get an opportunity for. Those were usually the ones I liked the most, and the ones that came my way, I simply wasn't responding to the way they had hoped. So that was the only thing that's kind of kept me away from it.
You mentioned you got a bust of yourself done.
It melted though.
Because you didn't get to have... Yeah, it melted, right. It melted into a lake.
It really did. It really did. It gets hot over there, man.
What's it like just having your own severed head in your house?
First of all, it was amazing. It was one of the first things I would show anybody who came over, including my mom. Mom, come in. She's like, Jesus Christ, Freddie, oh God. Like, she just hates no one wants to see their son's chopped off head, but I thought it looked awesome. He gave me like a jagged cut around it too. It wasn't just like the clean cut. He even sculpted and molded the neckline for it. And it would sit there and I would show it to everybody, but it was in this like office in my Toluca Lake house that had a ton of natural light. And I had a summer where I worked all 3 months in New York and Vancouver. I wasn't home once. And when I came home, it looked like the Toxic Avenger, which was this cartoon from the 80s. Like, that's what I was starting to look like, because half the face was just sliding off. It was so gross.
I'm from New Jersey. I know Toxic Avenger very well. Who are your like favorites? Like, if you had to, like, not even just film wise, just directors or whatever, because like you get into a lot of the weeds.
It's easy to say Wes Craven, but he really is, but for me, Tobe Hooper's always going to have a place in my heart, because it was the first one that I wasn't excited to see. I was genuinely scared to have to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I didn't want to go. I knew it was too much for my age to go over to my friend's house. It was going to be one of those sleepover movies. And I just knew it. And I watched it, and the fact that I survived and didn't like go and hide at 10 years old or whatever I was like, I'm a man now. Like, I'm a man. Like, I got through this movie, and everybody knows it, and nobody can talk trash, because I was the youngest kid there. You know what I mean? So it was
a year from now when you're still doing this podcast. I love how you started with I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I have a feeling you'll do I Still Know What You Did Last Summer somewhere down the line when it comes around. Is there any chance that you guys will cover The House of Yes? a truly scary.
Wow. Well, I never looked at it as a horror. I don't think it's accepted as a horror. We would have to submit it to Fangoria. They're the only ones whose opinion I respect. That's hard. Probably not. If anything, it's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
Thriller. I don't know how you would describe it. It was a play. That's the best way to describe it. I love that movie. That whole performance actually was, I didn't dedicate it. It wasn't like a public thing, but that was my like homage to Anthony Perkins, and the character's name was even Anthony.
Yeah.
And I basically made him Norman Bates before the motel. You know, I was a young actor, so I didn't succeed in every moment that I wanted to in that film. That was the biggest role I'd ever gotten. You know, I was so young and green, and I didn't know how to use my own life experience. So I had to think of someone else. And that was like my favorite. I got to watch Psycho with my grandma, man. It was like one of those like cool moments.
Yeah.
Like the first like grown up, and she's like, oh, well, I loved this movie back then, so we'll watch this. And I'm like loving the whole film. And then that last scene comes on, and I'm like, Grandma, why is he explaining everything we just watched? And she's like, well, it was different back then. And all this.
Audiences were dumber.
Yes, they weren't as sophisticated. Oh, okay. All right.
Man, Freddie, this has been, I could seriously just talk about horror like all day with you.
It's good. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the shared love on the topic. You can always tell when someone doesn't give a about your passion. So I appreciate you giving one.
Dude, I had like Herschel Gordon Lewis questions and stuff, just like,
oh my God.
Freddie Prinze Jr. Dude, thank you for hanging out and talking horror with me.
I appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you. Have a great one. I'll see you maybe at a local wrestling show, probably.
I hope so, man. I actually am announcing something soon that'll make that a reality. So we'll have to talk again.